Hi everyone, and welcome to this introduction to game design, and we will be using Adobe Flash. I'll be using Adobe Flash CS6, but you should be using any version of Adobe Flash which is CS3 or greater, okay, because we will be using a coding language called ActionScript 3 for this. By the way, if you're not interested in creating Flash games, you should really follow along with this tutorial anyway, because it's a great introduction to general game design principles, and it's an introduction to computer programming. So I'm sure you will get something out of this anyway. Alright, so we're going to look at creating a game of Pong. And I've just come into my digital illustration package here, and I'm just creating a kind of a concept for my Pong game. The black rectangle here is the game area, and inside the game area we have a player controlled paddle, we have a computer controlled paddle, we have a ball, and we have two score boxes. One for the player's score and one for the computer's score. So this is going to be my concept for my Pong game. So let's get into Flash and let's start designing this stuff. I'm going to open a new Flash file, and I will be using ActionScript 3 as the coding language, and we're going to get to that in some future tutorials. So I'm going to create a new ActionScript 3 file. Brilliant. And hopefully some of you guys already know how to create stuff in Flash. I need a player paddle, a computer paddle, a ball, and some scoring area. Okay, some scoring boxes up here. So I'm going to call layer 1 player paddle, and I'm going to draw it onto my screen. What colour? Should we go with that yellow colour that I had? Yeah, why not? Ooh, do I want that red border? Decisions. Yeah, alright, we'll keep it. So there's my player paddle, and I'm going to store this in my library. So I'm going to select it, right click on it, convert to symbol, and this is going to be player paddle. Now, it needs to be a movie clip, and we need to register the symbol in the center. So make sure the center button there is clicked, and we'll be talking more about that maybe a little bit later. Okay, so that player paddle is now stored in the library. There it is. Brilliant. So we're going to make another layer called computer paddle. And my computer paddle is just another player paddle, really, isn't it? So let's just draw out the... I tell you what, instead of doing it that way, why don't we go into the library? It's just the same. Why don't we go into the library and just duplicate player paddle? I'm going to call this computer paddle. It's also a movie clip, okay? And now we've got our computer paddle in the library, we can drag it onto the computer paddle layer. Make sure you've selected the computer paddle layer. So that is a computer paddle. Brilliant. Now we're going to make a ball. So layer 3 is going to be my ball. And I'm going to choose a oval tool. Let's not have a stroke. What color is the ball going to be? I'm going to make a red ball. How big should it be? I'm just going to make it something like that. And again, we need to store this in the library. So I'm going to select it, right click on it, and convert to a symbol, which is my ball. It's a movie clip, and the registration is in the center. Okay. So if I look in my library, I should now have a ball, a computer paddle, and a player paddle. Now before we finish, oh my goodness, we still have those text score boxes to make. So let's make a new layer called score boxes. I'm going to put both of them onto the same layer. I'm going to go to the text tool. I'm going to click there, and I'm just going to go to properties. This text box here is going to be a dynamic text box. It's going to be dynamic because the data in the text box will be changing as the game is playing. So this is going to be a dynamic text box. Okay? I don't really want it to be that big. Can I change the size of this thing? I can make it... How big do I want it to be? Is that alright? I want it to be a little bit narrower. How can I do that? Let's change the size. Let's make the size a bit smaller. 20, that's better. Is that too small? Well, there's a score box. Let's see if I can select it and move it into position. Something like that. There's one score box. Okay. Maybe make it a little bit bigger. It's just make sure it's dynamic text, and then you can play around as well with the size of it. Brilliant. All right. And I'm just gonna Control C, Control V, one of those. So we have two. Brilliant. Awesome. Now, before I finish this video, there's one thing that I want to tell you. If I click onto this library symbol, Flash already knows in the properties window that this is an instance of player paddle. So later when we start to code to make this thing move around, the code will look for this name, player paddle. Okay? But check this out. If I make a copy, Control C, Control V, let's imagine we have two player paddles in the game. If I select this one, it is an instance of player paddle. And if I click this one, it's also an instance of player paddle. Instance kind of means a copy of. So we've got two player paddles in the game. Now later when we code, the code won't know which player paddle we are referring to. So we've already got a problem in our game design. So I'm just going to delete one of those. I'm going to select my player paddle and I'm going to give it a unique name. I'm just going to call it player. Okay? So this player paddle here, there will only be one in my game anyway, but this is this is very important. This player paddle here is going to be called player, and this computer paddle is going to be called computer. And this ball is going to be called, I'm just going to call it ball. Because remember, imagine that there are two balls in the game. Let's make a new version of Pong where there are two balls flying around. And the balls are being controlled by the computer program. Now this is an instance of ball, and this is an instance of ball. So the computer program is going to get confused when we try to program, because they both have the same instance name. So that's why we can sort that out up here. This one could be called ball 1, and this one could be called ball 2. And now we will be able to program those two balls independently in the computer program. Actually, my Pong game is a little bit simpler than that. I'm only going to have one ball. There it is. And I'm just going to call it ball. So that's the end of this tutorial. See if you can set up 4 layers in your Flash document and add each of the characters of the game into your library and give each of the characters an instance name in the properties panel. Have a go.